Next up, we have Sol Rashidi, Chief Analytics Officer at Estee Lauder. Before data became cool, Sol was already pioneering some of the earliest advancement of data and advised companies on how to avoid over-architecting their solution and how AI is simply not a silver bullet. Welcome, Sol.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Sol Rashidi. I'm the Chief Analytics Officer for Estee Lauder. I'm truly humbled and honored to be here today. If you take a look at the lineup with Malala, who's a global icon, Bill Nye the Science Guy, I mean, who didn't grow up watching him, right? And the Mars rover landing team, I mean, holy cow. First to do sort of space exploration, to the founders of Databricks and taking a concept and turning it into a respectable global organization. Like it's I'll be honest, I rarely get intimidated. Rarely. It's not in my fabric, but there are some great leaders speaking today, and I'm really honored to be here. And, while my contributions have been very different, I'm hoping I can share some things with everyone that, I don't know, maybe you'll walk away and going, that was good, or I'll always remember that next time I do X. And that's primarily what I'm here for. So what I wanted to talk today was really about taking a product-centric mindset around anything we do in the data analytics space. And to be honest with you, what I'm going to share with you is purely through my failures and some of my successes when I started taking this approach towards things. And there were some early lessons learned. And so I'm hoping to bring some of those examples in, but also to let everyone know that it doesn't matter what your role in the organization is, a database administrator, data engineer, a QA specialist, what we do matters every day, every hour, every exhausting Zoom call after another, and sort of, walking you through why what you do matters. So what I wanted to do was just share a story of one of my first epic failures. And this is how it all started. I was in management consulting, and it was great because I started early and I got exposure to a ton of different companies with a ton of different problems, and no two solutions are alike. So it helped build that dexterity of, going from company A to company B and understanding how they're structured. And it was a phenomenal experience in really understanding of how you think something should be solved is not the only way of doing it. And my first gig of going back into industry, my first job was, we have consumer data. What they were saying is federated was really fragmented data all over the place. And when we did our discovery process, we found out it was across 76 different source systems. But we realized that the consumer data that we needed wasn't across 76, but really across 21. And so our job was to consolidate the 21 different source systems into a data lake environment. We built one zone where it was all raw data. We thought that the data scientists could use for data exploration. We built a second zone where it was mostly transformed data, so we can do reporting for those that may not want or complete raw data. But then we built a third zone so that any of the apps or digital products that were being developed could grab the information from a consumption layer. Sounds pretty good to me, if you will. Well, about 1 year into the endeavor, we launched. About $3 to $5 million later spent. We sat there and we said, holy cow, we celebrated our launch, and we were really happy and we were really proud. But 4 months after launch, we realized adoption was low, utilization was low. And I personally thought, oh my gosh, what did we just do? Why are we not getting the traction that we had hoped to? The idea was great. The concept was great. The architecture was sound. We got the investments that we needed, and people worked nights and weekends to make this happen within less than a year. Why are we not getting the adoption and utilization within the lake environment that we had anticipated? The person that I reported into in that position, over the years, or over the months and years, I always watched him. And the question he'd always asked was, so what? What is the outcome that we're going to achieve? And with that outcome, are there enough users to benefit from it? And I realized that I forgot to ask that question with the data lake. Because when you looked at the assessment and understanding, holy cow, what's the user base that could really start doing ad hoc reporting into the raw environment? Well, we learned that about 13% of the entire company either had SQL skills, R skills, or Python skills. That's 13% of the entire organization. Oh, and by the way, they've already built their own environments. They weren't waiting until corporate or the enterprise group built a lake for them. So they all had their own sandbox environments that they were running on. The last thing they wanted to do was redirect all their models and their analytics and their catalog over into the lake. So we had a small base of users to work with to begin with, and we didn't take into account the change management, the go-to-market strategy, and the migration strategy. So even the user group that we had banked on wasn't really using the environment. The second was, okay, we could support reporting because now they have access to more data, which is fundamentally what the business always wants. We want more data. We want more data. But then we realized for the first time ever, we're now combining revenue management data with consumer care data, with call center data. Even if the data was available, they have no idea how to use the data collectively to be able to generate new insights. We didn't have the tools, they didn't have the techniques, no one had walked them through the data models and what was in there so they could start understanding how to start modifying their reports, pre-built reports that they were depending on anyway. So even that group was sort of in the dark. And the third was, we didn't have any business stakeholders. We did not take a product-centric approach towards the lake at all. We did not bring the business with us from day one at all. And so we had some phenomenal engineers, we had some phenomenal architects, we had some phenomenal modelers, and we put this whole data lake ecosystem together. And again, after nearly a year and $3 to $5 million in investment, we didn't have any users because we forgot the one ingredient that mattered most. And that was the business ingredient. They were not with us along for the ride. And so it was great that we deployed. It was something else in the environment that they could tap into, but they weren't invested in it. They didn't know how to even use the information once we even made it accessible. And we didn't account for their skill set so that even when we made the information available, their ability to utilize it for their day-to-day wasn't really built into purpose. And it was, in my opinion, the first and epic fail. I didn't build the relationships. I didn't pull them in early enough. We didn't ask them if this was something they wanted. This was just something that an executive and above, and our CEO, by the way, mandated, but it was not built for the community at large. And I think, this is something that I wanted to share with you, everyone. Do not underestimate the power of the business. If not for them, then who are we building this for? And in taking a product-centric mindset, you've always got to bring them along for the ride because they're the ones who will create that perceived notion of whether or not something was a success or not. Which kind of brings me loosely to another point. There's a saying of like the whole is greater than the sum of its all parts. And that's really, really true. In my teams historically, the forget age range, forget ethnicity, forget genders, but even the roles are really diverse, from director of user experience to executive director of data science to data engineer to QA specialist, whatever it may be. And on days where I realize the team is losing steam, or an individual is losing steam, or they feel like that little piece of code that they're about to write, or if they're pushing something to production, or if they're developing the DevOps environment, the CI/CD processes, or if they're building wireframes and getting sort of the metrics and KPIs and color ranges right, what you do matters. And it may feel small. It may feel really small in the grand scheme of things. But your little small thing stitches with someone else's little small thing, that stitches with another person's small thing, that stitches with another person. And before you know it, these tiny incremental gains that you've made as an individual, when stitched together and connected holistically within your teammates, actually leads to exponential progress. And it's really hard to always keep that in mind and knowing that what you do matters, and to stay engaged and to stay in it and to not lose steam. And some days you're going to have great days where you feel like I have a purpose. And some days you're going to have bad days where you're like, what am I doing? All those matter because what you do does matter. And I think if you as an individual take a product-centric mindset and approach towards things, don't ever forget what we're building these capabilities for. And it's really around the business and their ability to grow, if not keep current market share. Combined with, even though your portion may feel really small in nature, when aggregated across all your other teammates, you're building an exponential capability the organization never had before. And that's something you should be proud of. Really, really proud of. I hope some of this stuff helped. Thank you again for this afternoon. And have a great day.